Ethan had always prided himself on being an adventurous and modern boyfriend. He believed that his relationship with Sophia, his girlfriend of 1 year, was built on trust and mutual understanding. As the new year approached, Ethan felt a desire to try something new to spice things up in their relationship. After much deliberation, he decided to suggest having a threesome. To him, it seemed like a harmless and exciting idea that any open-minded couple would explore. One evening, as they lounged in their cozy apartment, Ethan broached the topic. "Sophia, I was thinking, what if we tried something different for the new year, like a threesome? It could be fun," he said, trying to sound casual. Sophia's eyes widened in surprise, and she immediately shook her head. "Ethan, no. I'm not comfortable with that," she replied firmly. Ethan was taken aback by her response. He had expected some hesitation, but he thought he could convince her. "Come on, babe. Lots of couples do it. It could bring us closer," he insisted. But Sophia stood her ground, making it clear that this was a boundary she wouldn't cross. Ethan, however, wasn't ready to give up just yet. Days passed, and Ethan couldn't get the idea out of his head. His frustration grew as he felt Sophia was being unreasonable. In his mind, he had been a great boyfriend, supportive, caring, and attentive. He believed he deserved a little compromise from her. One evening, after dinner, he decided to push the issue further. "Sophia, I need to talk to you," Ethan began, his tone serious. "I've been thinking about what we discussed. I really want to try this. And if you can't even consider it, then maybe we're not on the same page." Sophia stared at him, disbelief etched on her face. "Are you giving me an ultimatum, Ethan? You're willing to throw away our relationship for something like this?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan crossed his arms. "I just think it's important for us to explore new things. If you can't do that, then maybe we need to reconsider where we stand," he replied. Hurt and anger flashed in Sophia's eyes as she responded, "Do whatever you want, Ethan. I'm not changing my mind." Determined to get his way, Ethan devised a plan to make Sophia see what life would be like without him. He decided to stage a fake move-out, hoping that the thought of losing him would make her reconsider his proposition. He began packing his belongings, making sure to do it slowly and deliberately so Sophia would notice. He packed a few boxes each day, making it seem like he was serious about leaving. Sophia watched in silence, her emotions hidden behind a stoic expression. Ethan couldn't tell if she was affected by his actions or not, but he was convinced that she would eventually crack. One evening, as he packed his clothes into a suitcase, he glanced at Sophia sitting on the couch. "Are you really okay with me leaving?" he asked, expecting her to plead with him to stay. Sophia looked up, her face calm but distant. "If that's what you want, Ethan, I won't stop you," she said quietly. Her words unsettled him, but he pressed on with his plan, convinced that she would change her mind eventually. Ethan's plan took a more devious turn when he decided to involve his mistress, Natalie, in the ruse. Natalie was someone he had been seeing on the side for a few months, and he saw this as an opportunity to integrate her into his life more openly. He told Natalie about his plan to fake a move-out and asked her to help him with the packing. Natalie agreed, though she was unaware of the full extent of Ethan's manipulation. She thought she was helping him leave a toxic relationship, not realizing she was part of a scheme. On the day of the supposed move, Natalie arrived with her car to help load Ethan's belongings. When Sophia saw Natalie, whom Ethan introduced as just a friend, she felt a pang of betrayal. She had always trusted Ethan, and seeing another woman involved in his move made her heart ache. Still, she remained composed, watching as they carried boxes out of the apartment. Ethan, oblivious to Sophia's pain, believed his plan was working. With the last box loaded into the truck, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He glanced back at the apartment, expecting Sophia to come running out, begging him to stay. To his surprise, Sophia did come out, but her demeanor was not what he expected. She approached him with a small item in her hand. "You forgot this," she said, handing him his toothbrush. Ethan stared at her, bewildered. That's it? That's all you have to say? He asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Sophia looked at him with a sad smile. Good luck, Ethan. I hope you find what you're looking for, she said, before turning back inside and closing the door. As the door clicked shut, Ethan realized the gravity of his situation. He had nowhere to go, and Sophia wasn't going to stop him. The reality of his actions hit him like a ton of bricks. Ethan stood in the driveway, staring at the closed apartment door, his toothbrush clutched in his hand. The silence around him felt deafening. He hadn't expected this outcome. In his mind, Sophia would have broken down and begged him to stay. Instead, she had calmly shut the door on their relationship. Natalie tapped him on the shoulder. Are you ready to go? She asked, her voice hesitant. Ethan nodded, though he felt a growing sense of dread. He hadn't thought this through. His plan was to move out temporarily to make Sophia miss him. Now, with no apartment to return to, he realized he was truly homeless. As they drove to Natalie's place, Ethan tried to rationalize his situation. Sophia just needs time to cool off, he told himself. She'll call me in a few days. But deep down, he knew he had pushed too far. His ultimatum had backfired, and now he was paying the price. When they arrived at Natalie's apartment, Ethan's hopes of crashing there for a while were quickly dashed. Natalie's living situation wasn't what he had imagined. She shared a small 2-bedroom apartment with 2 other women, and space was tight. Natalie led Ethan inside and introduced him to her roommates. They exchanged awkward hellos, clearly surprised to see a man with bags in tow. Ethan took in the cramped living room, cluttered with books, clothes, and random household items. There was no spare room, no couch big enough to sleep on. So, where can I put my things? Ethan asked, trying to sound upbeat. Natalie bit her lip. I didn't think you'd be staying long term. You said you just needed help moving your stuff to storage. Ethan's heart sank. Right, of course, he lied. I just need to figure things out for a couple of days. Ethan spent the night on a small air mattress in Natalie's room, his mind racing with thoughts of how to fix his situation. He had tried calling and texting Sophia, but his messages went unanswered. She had blocked him on social media and even changed the locks on the apartment door. The next morning, Ethan decided to go back to the apartment, hoping to catch Sophia before she left for work. He stood outside the building, waiting for her to emerge. When she finally appeared, she walked right past him without a glance. Sophia, wait! Ethan called out, jogging to catch up with her. She stopped and turned, her expression cold. What do you want, Ethan? I think we need to talk. Can I come back? Just for a little while? I don't have anywhere to go. Sophia shook her head. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. I've moved on, and you should too. Her words cut deep, and Ethan realized that there was no way back. Desperate and out of options, Ethan decided to file a complaint with the local housing authority. He believed that as a tenant, he had some rights to the apartment, even though he had left voluntarily. He hoped that a legal avenue might force Sophia to let him back in. At the housing office, Ethan explained his situation to a caseworker. I lived there for a year. I paid rent. She can't just kick me out like that, he argued. The caseworker listened patiently before pulling up the relevant laws. Mr. Carter, according to our records, you voluntarily moved out. You packed your things and left on your own accord. Unfortunately, tenant rights don't apply in this case. There's nothing we can do to help you. Ethan felt his stomach drop. So that's it? I'm just homeless now? The caseworker nodded sympathetically. I'm afraid so. You'll need to find alternative housing. Ethan's next plan was to reach out to friends. He called several people hoping someone would let him crash on their couch for a few nights. But one by one, they turned him down. Most of his friends were either married or living with partners and couldn't accommodate him. His best friend Jake seemed like his last hope. Hey man, I need a favor, Ethan began. I need a place to stay, just for a few days. Jake sighed on the other end of the line. Ethan, I've got a wife and 2 kids now. We don't have the space. Plus, I heard what happened with Sophia. Dude, you really messed up. Ethan hung up the phone, feeling more alone than ever. He had burned bridges and pushed people away. Now, when he needed help the most, there was no one left to turn to. Back at Natalie's apartment, things were getting tense. Her roommates were uncomfortable with Ethan's presence, and Natalie herself was growing frustrated. She had thought Ethan's stay would be temporary, but it was becoming clear that he had no plan. "Ethan, we need to talk," Natalie said one evening, pulling him aside. "You can't stay here much longer. My roommates are starting to complain." Ethan rubbed his temples. "I'm trying to figure something out. Just give me a little more time." But Natalie shook her head. "I can't keep risking my living situation for you. You need to find somewhere else to go." Feeling defeated, Ethan realized that he had worn out his welcome with Natalie too. The life he had carefully built was unraveling, and there seemed to be no way to stop it. Just when things seemed hopeless, Ethan received a call from an old acquaintance, Mark. They hadn't spoken in years, but Mark had heard about Ethan's situation through mutual friends. "Hey, I heard you're in a bit of a jam," Mark said. "I've got a garage you can stay in for a while if you need it." Ethan felt a flicker of hope. "Really? That would be amazing. Thank you, man," Mark chuckled. "It's not much, but it's dry and warm. You'll have to bring your own mattress, though." Ethan didn't care about the conditions. He finally had a place to go. "I'll take it. Thank you, Mark. I owe you big time." As he packed his things and prepared to leave Natalie's apartment, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of how far he had fallen. From a comfortable life with Sophia to living in a friend's garage, all because of his own selfish choices. The road ahead would be rough, but for now, he had a roof over his head. Ethan stood in Mark's driveway, staring at the detached garage that would be his new home. The structure was old, with peeling paint and a rusty door that creaked as Mark pulled it open. Inside, the space was cluttered with tools, old furniture, and boxes of forgotten belongings. There was a faint smell of gasoline and dust. Mark handed Ethan a key. "It locks from the inside, but don't expect much privacy. It's not insulated, so it'll get cold at night. You've got electricity, but no running water." Ethan forced a smile. "It's perfect. Thanks again, man." He set up his air mattress in a corner, surrounded by boxes. As he lay down that night, the reality of his situation hit him. This wasn't just a temporary setback. He had lost everything: his home, his relationship, and his dignity. The first week in the garage was tough. Ethan struggled to adjust to the lack of basic amenities. The mornings were the hardest, waking up to the cold, hard floor and realizing he had no bathroom to use. He relied on the nearby gas station for necessities like showers and restrooms. Mark checked in occasionally, but it was clear that his patience was limited. "So, what's your plan?" Mark asked one evening. Ethan shrugged. "I'm working on it." In truth, he had no idea what to do next. Job offers weren't exactly pouring in, and his pride kept him from reaching out to Sophia again. One night, as he sat on the garage floor eating a cold sandwich, Ethan thought about how far he had fallen. He remembered the comfortable dinners he used to have with Sophia. Now he was eating alone in a garage, surrounded by junk. As the days dragged on, Ethan found himself haunted by memories of his relationship with Sophia. He remembered their first date, the way she laughed at his jokes, and the nights they spent talking about their future. He had taken all of it for granted, assuming she would always be there. One evening, he scrolled through old photos on his phone, lingering on pictures of Sophia. His heart ached with regret. "What was I thinking?" he muttered to himself. He had traded a loving, stable relationship for a fleeting fantasy with Natalie, a woman who now seemed more like a stranger than a lover. The memories consumed him, making it harder to focus on the present. He realized he had been living in the past, clinging to the hope that Sophia might forgive him. But deep down, he knew that bridge had been burned. One chilly afternoon, as Ethan was reorganizing the garage to make it more livable, he heard a knock on the door. He wasn't expecting anyone. Hesitantly, He opened it to find Natalie standing there. "Hey," she said, shuffling her feet. "I heard you were staying here. Can we talk?" Ethan stepped aside to let her in. "Sure. What's up?" Natalie looked around the garage, her expression a mix of pity and guilt. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About us." Ethan crossed his arms. "And?" Natalie sighed. "I feel responsible for how things turned out. I never wanted you to end up like this." Ethan shook his head. "You didn't force me to leave Sophia. I did that on my own. I made my bed and now I'm lying in it." They sat in silence for a moment before Natalie stood up. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I hope you figure things out." As she left, Ethan felt a strange sense of closure. He realized he couldn't blame Natalie for his downfall. His choices had led him here, and it was up to him to find a way out. After Natalie's visit, Ethan spent days reflecting on his life. He had always been confident, even arrogant, believing he was untouchable. But now, stripped of everything, he saw himself for who he really was, a man who had made selfish decisions without considering the consequences. He decided it was time to take responsibility. He needed to find a job, even if it was something beneath his previous standards. He needed to stop relying on others to bail him out. Most importantly, he needed to confront his own flaws and make amends where he could. Ethan made a list of goals: find a job, save money, and eventually find a place to live. It wasn't much, but it was a start. For the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of hope. Ethan's first attempts at job hunting were disheartening. He applied for dozens of positions, from retail jobs to warehouse work, but received little response. His lack of recent work experience and his haggard appearance didn't help. One day, he walked into a local diner, hoping to get a dishwashing job. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Linda, looked him up and down. "You got any experience?" she asked. "Not in dishwashing," Ethan admitted, "but I'm a quick learner." Linda shook her head. "We're looking for someone with experience." As Ethan walked out, he felt the familiar sting of rejection, but he refused to give up. He knew he had to keep trying if he wanted to turn his life around. After weeks of searching, Ethan finally landed a part-time job at a local convenience store. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. The manager, an older man named Frank, seemed to take pity on him. "You've had a rough time, huh?" Frank asked during the interview. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, I'm just trying to get back on my feet." Frank gave him a nod of approval. "Well, we all make mistakes. What matters is what you do next." Ethan's first shift was exhausting. He spent hours stocking shelves, cleaning the store, and dealing with customers. But as he walked back to the garage that night, he felt a sense of accomplishment. He was finally taking steps to rebuild his life. One evening, Ethan decided to call his parents. He hadn't spoken to them in months, too ashamed to admit how far he had fallen, but he knew he couldn't keep avoiding them. His mother answered on the first ring. "Ethan, it's been so long. How are you?" "I've been better," Ethan admitted. I made some mistakes. I'm trying to fix things." There was a pause on the other end. "We all make mistakes, honey. What matters is that you're trying to make things right." The conversation was emotional but healing. His parents offered their support, even suggesting he come home for a while. But Ethan declined. He needed to prove to himself that he could stand on his own 2 feet. As he hung up the phone, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't alone in this journey. With his family's encouragement, he was more determined than ever to rebuild his life. On a rainy afternoon, Ethan decided to take a walk to clear his mind. The rain was light but persistent, soaking through his jacket as he wandered aimlessly through the streets. His thoughts drifted back to Sophia and the life he had thrown away. As he turned a corner, he spotted a familiar figure coming out of a coffee shop. Sophia. She looked radiant, despite the gloomy weather. Ethan's heart skipped a beat, but he hesitated. He wasn't sure if he should approach her, but fate made the decision for him when she glanced up and saw him. Their eyes locked for a moment, and Ethan felt a rush of emotions. Sophia gave a small, polite smile before walking away. Ethan stood frozen, watching her disappear into the crowd. He realized that she was moving on with her life, while he was still stuck in the past. Back in the garage, Ethan sat on his makeshift bed, replaying the encounter with Sophia in his mind. He couldn't shake the image of her walking away, looking so composed and at peace. It made him realize how much he had hurt her and how much he had lost. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through their old text messages. There were hundreds of conversations, filled with love and laughter. He came across the last message she had sent him before he moved out. "I hope you find what you're looking for." Ethan sighed heavily. He hadn't found what he was looking for. Instead, he had lost everything. He felt a deep, gnawing regret that wouldn't go away. He needed to do something to make amends, even if it was just for his own peace of mind. Mark's patience was wearing thin. Ethan had been living in the garage for over a month, and it was clear that Mark was getting tired of the arrangement. One evening, as Ethan returned from his shift at the convenience store, Mark confronted him. "Ethan, we need to talk," Mark said, his tone serious. Ethan set down his bag and sighed. "Yeah, I figured this was coming. I've been helping you out because we're friends, but this can't be permanent. You need to figure out your next move." Ethan nodded. "I get it. I'm trying. I just need a little more time." Mark softened slightly. "I know you've been through a lot, but you can't keep living like this. You need to get your life back on track." Ethan appreciated Mark's honesty. It was a wake-up call he desperately needed. He knew he couldn't rely on his friend forever. The next day at work, Ethan's manager, Frank, pulled him aside. "Hey, Ethan, I've got some news for you." Ethan's heart sank. He thought he was about to be fired. "What's up?" Frank smiled. "It's good news. We've got a full-time position opening up, and I'd like to offer it to you." Ethan was stunned. "Really? Are you sure?" "Yeah, you've been working hard, and I think you deserve a chance. It's not much, but it's steady work." Ethan couldn't believe it. For the first time in a long while, something was going right in his life. He shook Frank's hand. "Thank you. I won't let you down." That evening, Ethan returned to the garage feeling a renewed sense of hope. He finally had a stable job and a chance to rebuild his life. Ethan decided it was time to apologize to Sophia. He knew she might never forgive him, but he needed to express his regret. He sat down with a pen and paper and began writing. "Dear Sophia, I've spent a lot of time thinking about everything that happened between us. I realize now how much I hurt you, and I'm truly sorry. You didn't deserve any of it. I was selfish, and I took you for granted. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I regret my actions every day. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw it all away. I hope you're happy and that you've found peace. You deserve it. Sincerely, Ethan." After finishing the letter, Ethan folded it carefully and placed it in an envelope. He debated whether to send it or not, but ultimately decided that it was the right thing to do. A few days later, Ethan received a text from an unknown number. "Got your letter. Can we meet?" His heart raced. It had to be Sophia. He replied quickly, agreeing to meet at a park they used to visit together. When he arrived, Sophia was already there, sitting on a bench. She looked up as he approached, her expression unreadable. "Hey," Ethan said softly. "Hey," she replied. There was an awkward silence before she spoke again. "I got your letter. Thank you for writing it." "I meant every word," Ethan said. "I'm so sorry, Sophia. I hurt you, and I've regretted it every day since." Sophia nodded. "I appreciate the apology, but I've moved on, Ethan. I'm in a better place now. I hope you find your way too." Ethan felt a pang of sadness, but also relief. She wasn't angry. She had found peace, and that's what mattered. After the meeting with Sophia, Ethan spent a lot of time reflecting on his life. He realized that his downfall wasn't just about losing his relationship, it was about losing himself. He began setting small goals for himself. He started saving money from his job, paying off debts, and even looking into renting a small apartment. He knew it would take time, but he was determined to keep moving forward. One evening, as he sat in the garage, he thought about how far he had come. He wasn't the same person who had arrogantly walked out on Sophia. He had learned humility and the value of genuine connections. Mark approached Ethan one evening with a serious look on his face. "Ethan, we need to talk." Ethan sighed. "What is it now?" "I've been patient, but you've been here for months. You need to find a new place to stay. I'm getting married soon, and I need this space back." Ethan nodded, understanding. "I get it. I've been working on it. I'll be out soon." Mark softened. "I'm glad to see you're getting back on your feet. Just don't wait too long." Ethan appreciated Mark's honesty. It was time to take the next step. Ethan finally saved enough money to put down a deposit on a small studio apartment. It wasn't much, but it was his. As he packed up his belongings in the garage, he felt a mix of emotions: gratitude for Mark's help, sadness for what he had lost, and hope for the future. Mark helped him load his things into the car. "You've come a long way, man. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Mark. I couldn't have done it without you." As Ethan drove to his new apartment, he felt a sense of accomplishment. He still had a long way to go, but he was finally on the right path. In his new apartment, Ethan sat on his bed, reflecting on his journey. He had learned many hard lessons over the past year about love, loyalty, and the consequences of his actions. He pulled out his phone and opened a blank note. At the top, he wrote, "Lessons learned. 1. Appreciate what you have before it's gone. 2. Be honest with yourself and others. 3. Take responsibility for your actions. 4. Never take love for granted." As he finished the list, Ethan felt a sense of closure. His journey wasn't over, but he was ready to face whatever came next. He had lost everything, but he had found himself in the process.